guide dog books up here for?
Oh, we can move anywhere.
No.
No.
I was going to say, what are you going to do, hit me? Well, this year, the old boy was doing that.
Here's a test. You thought you were done with testing.
Tell me about it.
Here, we'll put these on.
Okay. Well, this is good stuff.
So if you talk to them.
Hi, everyone. Chris J. here from Blue Coat Foundation. On this podcast episode, I was joined by fellow officer Andre Burton as my co-host. We had the honor and privilege of interviewing a retired deputy chief from the LAPD, Maurice Moore. Maurice Moore is originally from Kansas City. He grew up during a time when segregation still existed. He embarked on several journeys along the way for love, for his career, and to discover his family roots. Maurice Moore has had an illustrious career, to say the least, that spanned 4 decades. He joined the department in 1961. He's been through 2 major riots, numerous chiefs, high-profile cases, several fallen officers, historic police scandals, and so many cultural changes over time. He has moved around and worked many of the agency's geographical stations. He's worked several specialized units and even moved up to the rank of deputy chief. Although this podcast is almost 2 hours in length, we hardly touched the surface of all the historical events that Maurice Moore has experienced as a police officer. I'm hoping we can podcast with him again so we can focus on key eras in his career. It was a pleasure to hear about his experience, leadership, positivity, and sound advice he gives for the modern-day cops. As a side note, some of edits were made to omit certain officer names, but we still kept the integrity of the story in place. Without further ado, Deputy Chief Maurice Moore.
You know, you're talking about a kid from Kansas City, Kansas. And the only thing that people remember that is it's across the bridge from Kansas City, Missouri. Okay? But I was born and raised in Kansas in a segregated school system all the way through high school. And, great community. Absolute great community that I lived in. If you think about some of the people that come from Kansas right now, there were some talented people that came out of that city, and I wouldn't try to say who all they are. That one little lady who is a great actress right now, and she was in that movie Hidden Figures, but Kansas City, Kansas. But anyhow. Left there, and when I graduated from high school and went on came to LA.
So what year was this?
1953.
53?
1953. And then I came to California with my good buddy Monroe Nash. We drove in my car, 2 absolutely kids, driving from Kansas City, Kansas to Los Angeles, California. And the interesting thing was that he was coming out for summer vacation. I was coming to stay because my mom and dad were living here. And I had given my honey a ring before I left. Oh, serious stuff, right? I gave my honey a ring. And then I was here a few months, and next thing you know, we didn't have telephone calls and all that kind of stuff. Telephone? Are you kidding? That's big stuff to call long distance.
Right.
So she sent me a letter, and she says, what am I supposed to do with this ring? And I remember jumping in my car. I mean, it didn't take me but about a week to pack up and drive back to Kansas City. Is this me? And so, sure enough, this happened. Sorry about that, folks.
No worries.
But anyhow, no. Okay. So anyhow, got married. And,
You got married in Kansas?
yeah.
Okay.
Kansas
So you
City,
came back.
Before you left.
No. When
you came
remember,
back.
I went to California.
Okay.
The letter came, and then sure enough, what am I going to do with this ring? And jumped in my car alone. I wasn't even 19 years old.
How long is the drive?
Think about it. It's about 1,700 miles.
I want to know what kind of car you're driving.
I was driving a 19. Let me think about that now. A 19. Boy. I'm trying to think. It was a 1949 Ford. Nice. It was clean.
Air conditioning?
I don't think so.
That means you went back for love.
No, you know what? It's interesting. As you well know, money's tight for an 18-year-old kid, because I was 18. And I got back on my birthday when I turned 19. But anyhow, when you think about that, that was love. That was absolutely love, period. And drove back there, and we were married shortly thereafter that.
Did you have a green book?
You know, I had never even heard of a green book until the recent years. Isn't that interesting? Do you know what a green book is?
I do not.
Yeah.
So a green book was it was a guide back in.
For black, it was a guide for black
It
people.
was a guide for black people.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't, if you got in your car, there were certain places you couldn't stay.
There's a lot
You
of
couldn't
places.
just go anywhere you wanted to go.
Right.
So there were certain gas stations you go to, certain hotels, motels you can go to, certain restaurants.
Where
that
you
would
welcome.
accept blacks, yeah, where you were welcome. And if it wasn't listed, then
You kept driving.
keep going. Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
No, and you know, when you think about that, that gives the horror of this country.
Yeah.
You know, racism was terrible. It really was. And, you know, if you think about what was happening in the 60s, which was bad, you know, but you think about, you know, the 50s and the 40s and the 30s and the
Right.
20s, oh my God, horrible.
Probably unchecked up to that point, right?
Well, you say, yeah, well, in other words, unchecked, meaning that nobody was stopping it. I don't know what you mean when you say unchecked.
Unchecked, maybe power, maybe racism, maybe it was just so much part of the norm and from transitioning that no one even kind of realized it until later.
Well, you know, you got to go further back. You got to go back, and I'll tell you something. I think we're all a little bit wiser today about the blatant racism in this country when you go back all the way to slavery. And you go back to those countries, not those countries, but those states that slavery and slaves were a product, you know, to do the grunt work, do the cotton, do all that stuff, you know. So, you know, there was a struggle in this country about whether slavery should exist. And then, what are we talking about all this for? Come think about it.
Well, it's just to get to know
Yeah.
where you.
Well, hey, I'll tell you something. I became like both of you, I'm sure, more educated here most recently, and I mean those last 5-6 years, about the horror that happened in this country. You know, when you think about the Emancipation Proclamation, when you think about once slavery was declared a law, now illegal rather, when you think about the Supreme Court in those days and times, who also said separate but equal was fine. No, not together. Separate but equal is fine. That's the reason I went through a segregated school system.
Now, going through the segregated school, so was that normal for you, or
That's all I
because
knew.
that's all you knew?
Yeah, that's all you knew. But I'm gonna tell you something. At one of my class reunions in Kansas City, Kansas, at Sumner High School, named for a senator by the name of Charles Sumner, Sumner. Great guy. At that school, before the entire audience, because now it's Sumner like a preparatory school. So kids of all colors, you know, and persuasions now go to Sumner Academy, I think that's what they call it. But we did visit that. And our class, some of us were on the stage up there, and I looked out there and saw this sea of young people of various races and what have you. And it brought joy to my heart because I shared with them, I said, when I was here, there were only black faces out there. I said, except for one. And it was my good buddy named Joe Chow. Now, Joe's father was Chinese and his mother was black, so where did Joe go to school? He went to school with the black kids, period. And he looked so Chinese, it's pathetic. And I talked to him today. No, really, no doubt about it. I talked to Joe today, he and another guy. We're pretty tight, and we're trying to put together a Zoom class reunion. Because people are so old now. They probably don't even want to be seen on there, let alone trying to go to a reunion. But anyhow, so I just told him, I said, when I was here, you would have seen nothing but black faces other than the one. I said, hey, stand up, Joe. And Joe stood up, because he was the one guy, who was not looking black at all. And so I said, but don't feel sorry for us. Do not feel sorry for us. I said, because we had some of the best teachers that anyone could ever anticipate. And it was that way because our principal had the ability and opportunity to select the teachers from all across the nation, period. If he knew of a quality teacher in Minnesota, boom, he brought them in from wherever. So Sumner was a class act. It really, really was. And once again, we've had some quality that came out of Sumner High School in various classes. So that was my experience as far as high school and coming to California and ultimately going back with a wife and 3 kids. No, wife and 2 kids. One of them was born in L.A. Interesting, huh?
Can I ask about being that you come from a segregated school system and community?
Right.
What was your viewpoint on police back then, and how did that influence your decisions on becoming a police officer?
It's interesting. My experience probably had no impact upon me becoming a police officer, my experience in Kansas. And I'll tell you why. The police department was just like everything else. The black police officers worked in the black community. And so some of them you liked and some of them you hated because law enforcement in Kansas City, Kansas certainly was not of the quality that we experience today. And the whole thing was, when Max Staples and I can't think of the other guy's name, harsh person, their thing was fear. Beat them up, club them down to the ground, all right, and walk on and leave them. You don't have to book nobody. So my experience with Kansas City, Kansas police was I despised them. I was afraid of them, and they wanted you to be afraid of them. And they were black, so it's as simple as that. It's no secret that in many cities, in Los Angeles, LAPD was the same. That at one point in time, black police officers didn't arrest white people.
Right.
And they worked in those areas where it was predominantly black. But
Do you know what years that was?
well, think about it. I have to think about LAPD, as great as it is and was. It didn't integrate until 1961.
Okay.
So
that's right when you came on, right?
Yeah, when I came on in '61. Yeah.
And you could only work at Newton back then and morning watch.
It's interesting about that. I had a great introduction to the LAPD. Coming in and going undercover immediately, working the so-called buy program, narcotic buy program.
Can you go back for a second? When you what year did you come on? And
I came on I was in the class of May 1, 1961. And that's so prominent in my mind right now because I just looked at the rotator and there are 2 of my classmates that died. 2 of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 2 of them. And I sent a message to another classmate that I have high regard for. And I said, hey, I don't know if you saw this. I said, but I'd like to put together a Zoom meeting for the rest of our class, a Zoom reunion meeting. And I said, are you willing to work with me on that? And I haven't heard from him yet. But one guy, Ross Moore, he was a lieutenant. And he was a colonel in some form in the military. But I had thought about him, of contacting him just to say, hey, let's do this Zoom meeting. And then I look at the rotator, and he's gone. And then Charlie Hudson, and he was a classmate. And I'm disappointed that I didn't know he lived right over in Canyon. What was it, Canyon Lake? It's over there by Lake Elsinore. Yeah.
It's not too far from her.
No, yeah, it's right here. But anyhow, so the question you asked me about whether or not, my experience in Kansas impacted my thoughts about coming to the LAPD, absolutely not. I went to the post office, and for a black man, that was a great job in Kansas City, Kansas. And I worked at the post office and did that for 6.5 years and transferred from Kansas City, Kansas to Los Angeles, or really Panorama City. Delivered mail in Panorama City. How about that? Back in the day.
What influenced you to come on LAPD?
Well, that's a great question because, once again, the post office was a great job for a black man in Kansas City, Kansas. It was okay here. But I looked at LAPD, honestly, and, I'll tell you something. There has to be a lot of people that were like me who thought, number one, it looked like a great job. And beyond that, television certainly did boost our image. Mm-hmm. Jack Webb made us look better than we really were. And I think the LAPD was smart, to allow Jack Webb, to use that image like he did. Because when you think about Dragnet, man, oh man, that was polished. That was wonderful. But were we that good? Probably not.
Free marketing.
Free marketing. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
The uniforms were nice and
everything.
sharp. And
well, look at Adam 12, Yeah. Oh my God, that was a great. And then we celebrated those guys until I guess they both dead now. But when you think about what Jack Webb did for the Los Angeles Police Department and how we ate it up, and began to think that we were that good. We weren't that good. No way.
A lot of his talks and rants, he knew something on the inside, or he had a good coach or something, because they still hit.
I'm going to tell you something. The guy was so polished and so expert about what he did in producing movies. So think about that. He used to absolutely copy. And I'll use this as an example because I can't say that this is one of them. But any office down there, Robbery Homicide Division, as it stood, he went in there, filmed every room, and then reproduced that. I mean, from the calendar on the wall, we used to have city calendars. They were issued to us, city calendars on the wall, And so he was a great producer, is what it amounts to. Yeah. And I'm sure that a lot of people, benefited from his style of production. And I'm gonna gravitate just a little bit to Steve Downing, who just passed away. Do you know Steve Downing?
I've heard the name.
Do you know Michael Downing? Michael retired as a deputy chief not too long ago, and he's out on the circuit, right now, selling his knowledge about terrorism and all that. But his dad, Steve Downing, was a prince of a man, an absolutely prince of a man, and lived down there in what's the bay down there in Long Beach, where you got all the pretty boats and stuff. Balboa's down in.
That's Newport.
That's all the way down there.
Naples Island?
It's not Naples, but give me another name.
Near Long Beach?
Long Beach is
it is Long Beach. It's Long Beach Harbor down there.
Yeah, Palos Verdes goes all the way down towards Long Beach. Oh, no.
It's a great harbor down there right now. And you probably know some guys. In fact, a bunch of them, they meet, I think, in the Long Beach Retired Officers Gizmo. Tom Sorenza. I think Tom lives down there. But anyhow, Steve Downing just passed away. And he was a ghostwriter. Mm-hmm. He had 4 different names that he used, But now how did I get talking about Steve, But
so he ghostwrote for Dragnet or Adam 12?
Well, no, but I just say that many a person did the same thing that Jack Webb did.
Okay.
Jack Webb was a great writer. He and Ben Alexander, he and the partner. But his statements, I think you made a comment just a moment, how his statements were so sharp. They were. He was just quite the guy.
Did you get a chance to meet him?
Who?
Jack Webb?
No, I did not. And I would love to have. And, it's interesting. I've started to try to capture who I have met, or at least whose presence I was in. And it gets to be a marvelous thing. It really does. Man, oh man, oh man. Martin Luther King, closer than what you and I are. Coretta Scott King, closer than what you and I are. Dexter, the other son, Martin Luther King Jr., right down here at 3rd Street next to the Grove, So it's amazing where you see, I think we talked about that over at your dad's house one day, but we talked about, but the people that you've seen and the people that you've come in contact with because you were LAPD,
Right.
because you were there, So anyhow, those are great things to think about.
Can you go over your training in the academy?
Yeah.
How was that? Like, how many did you start off with, and how many did you graduate?
Okay,
Do you remember that?
we started out with a class of 46. Not a big class at all. May 1st, 1961. Let's see, the class started in May, and I think we were out in August. I think we graduated. No, I'm not too sure about that. But anyhow, I think we graduated with a class of 41. Started with 46, graduated 41. And obviously, the training was blistering for some people who were just totally out of shape. They couldn't do it. They couldn't do enough pull-ups. The run would kill them, And we had a guy, Big Joe Farrell. We had one guy that I just loved to death, and only because he's dead. What was his name? Dave Fahey. During the class training, Dave went home like everybody did. He was cleaning a gun and accidental discharge.
Oh no.
Yeah, killed himself accidentally. It was no suicide.
He was a recruit at the time?
He was a trainee. He was one of the training staff.
Oh.
Yeah, Dave Fahey. Yeah. You think about, your experience up there. The running was fine. I was in good shape. What did I say? I was a mailman when I came on. Give me some more. And I was in pretty decent shape, too. It really was. I came on at 26 years of age. And a lot of those kids came on at 21, which was great. I think about Ross Moore, and I had no idea until I just read his obituary the other day, and he was a colonel. And I don't know a colonel how, but anyhow. It was more talk about him being a colonel than it was about him being on LAPD and a lieutenant who was retired in Florida. And I think he found some rich girl down there and was living with her until he passed away.
Good life.
The good life. The good life, except them bugs and whatever.
And the gators.
And the gators. And the gators. Yeah.
So during your class, what did they issue you? Like on your belt?
I think we were the first class, or one of the first classes to be issued the 6-inch. Smith & Wesson. I still got that bad boy. It was in my shadow box, but I took it out. But we were issued everything, Sam Brown, and I don't remember us buying our uniforms even. But that was a great experience. It really, really was. Dave Fahey he was good to me. When you find an instructor that says, "Hey, way to go," he's giving you encouragement, and that's where Dave Fahey was. So, of all the instructors that were there, this guy impressed me, and so it really bothered me and hurt me that he had accidentally killed himself. And yet, we had some other good guys. Ted Cook, he became a teacher, and there was a bunch of them. Not a teacher, but he was an instructor. and promoted and went someplace. I think he would end up being a chief of police of Culver City. But anyhow, see, it was a good experience for me. I was cautious, and I say that because at the end of the training session and ready for graduation, some of the guys were a little cocky, and they said, we're going to throw these instructors into the pool.
Oh,
Yeah, and they did. And I said, have at it. I said, but I ain't going to be, I said, I got a wife and 3 kids. I ain't doing nothing stupid. And they threw them in the pool. But I guess it's, it's part of the camaraderie.
oh yeah.
What happened with the pool?
Huh?
What happened after they threw him in the pool?
Oh, they got out and laughed,
Oh, okay.
But I just said, I'm being careful.
Right.
Hey, no, come on, hey, listen.
Yeah.
Why'd you get fired, Mark? Oh, well, I was stupid. I threw him in the pool. And then you think about graduation day, and that was awesome. And then I remember graduating, and this big, tall guy came over to me and said, I need to talk to you, and he talked to me. So anyhow, he introduced himself as Burton. I'm from Narcotics Division. You will report to Narcotics Division on the 5th floor of Parker Center, such and such a day and time. Boom.
Oh, you got assigned. Not even an option.
Yeah, no option.
And
So
that was before graduation, right?
That was the graduation day.
Oh, the graduation. Okay.
Yeah.
Where were you supposed to go? Did you have an assignment already?
I don't even remember.
Yeah.
They may have asked us, I don't remember, but but that was an experience. And I get down there, and I'm in the undercover bad program.
Wow.
In
In high schools?
Huh?
In high schools?
It's on the street, alone, no ID, no gun. Go buy the dope, identify, come back, go through the mug books, identify the guy, and now we got a case.
Holy moly!
Can
Is
you
that
tell
because you look really young or something? Or what do
Well,
think they
you know
chose?
what? I think we were in this class. There was another guy that was so near and dear to my heart. He's deceased, Jerry Chavis. You ever heard the name Jerry Chavis?
No.
He was a moose of a man. He was just in a heart of gold. And he died about, how long ago? Maybe about 4 or 5 years ago in Ohio. And his daughter and I are that tight right now because, Jerry and we immediately became friends. Another guy named Lionel Robert. But anyhow, so Jerry was on the BI program as well. I didn't know that somebody approached him, but when we get there, it's narcotics. Hey, how you doing, man? So we were out there. We didn't work together as a team or anything like that. And they sent us. He just said, "Okay, go out and buy some dope." I said, "Cool. I ain't never bought no dope. I don't know to buy." He said, "Go down to the Grand Central Market." I went down to the Grand Central. I mean, I was about as square as I could be. And I'm standing there just Grand Central Market. Like, how am I supposed to buy some dope? And a guy walked right past me, and he said, "Want to buy some dope?"
Yeah.
He did.
Perfect.
He did. But you know what? It didn't register, and he was still walking. So that was over. Then they sent me out. They said, "Well, go out on Central Avenue." And I remember I started getting the knack of it, And I think about, I guess that there's no entrapment as far as narcotics is concerned. There's no entrapment. You can be entrapped for a lot of things, but you can be. Now, the law hasn't changed, I don't believe, right?
I don't think
believe
so.
so.
Yeah. So sure enough, I became Bob. I had about a 1947 black Plymouth. I wished I had that car today. It was a great car. But I was known as Bob out there in South Park. And I'd lay around, and I started buying dope. And then some guy came with, he said, "Hey, man, I know somebody wants to buy some dope." And I said, "Well, don't come talk to me about that." I said, "I don't know the sucker. It's old." In other words, I'll buy it, but I ain't selling nothing. So anyhow, I got a little reputation out there. The boy buy some dope. But you do things in the name of law enforcement that you wonder about. Because I remember this one guy, and once again, now no entrapment for his narcotics. If you go to him and say, "Hey, man, I want you to go buy me some dope," that's not entrapment. Isn't that amazing? Okay. So sure enough, I remember going to this one guy, Leroy, and he said, "Well, man," I was telling him, I said, "Yeah, I need to get something, man." So he said, "Man, I got to do some work on my car." I got down there and helped this guy fix the brakes on his guy's dog car. Because I was good. I was good at working on cars. I fixed the brake on his car. Okay, let's go. And I entrapped this fool. I shouldn't say entrapped. I'm the one that approached him. He didn't say, "Hey, you going to buy some dope?"
Right.
And so, sure enough, when they have the grand jury secret indictment, you go to before the grand jury, you testify about all the transactions that you went through, each one of them, and I got the evidence, and I brought it back, to Parker Center and booked it and da-da-da-da-da, wrote my report. Well, that's what the grand jury secret indictments were all about. And so then they had the roundup. So they take all the dope cops and everybody, and they already got the mug books. They had big old mug books. Is this him? This him? If you wasn't in the mug book, then you identify where he lived and what you know about him. And sure enough, they went out and picked up these people. And I remember old Burt King, he was good at his job. When they bring him into narcotics division, they would bring the operator in. And they got this guy sitting here. And so, sure enough, the one guy, he looked up at me, like, "Hey, brother, you got you too, I guess." And then Burt King comes in and he says, "Hey, so-and-so, you know this man?" "Yeah, that's old Bob." He said, "Well, in reality, it's Officer Maurice Moore, the Los Angeles Police Department." Boy, one guy, he was so pissed by me, fire shooting out of his ears. "Don't you ever come down to the projects, I'm going to get your ass." But those were those days, So when I think about that poor one guy that I fixed his guy dog car so he can go out there and get himself a case. Amazing. Terrible.
That's straight out of the academy, huh?
Straight.
That's crazy.
No, when you're out there by yourself. You didn't have anybody with you.
Completely by yourself.
Did you get an iPhone?
Huh? Yeah, did I? Isn't that amazing?
They didn't put a.
I mean, you had nothing.
That's
And,
crazy.
So no-
it is crazy stuff. And I remember I was in the doorway talking to this crook, and he was going to sell me something. But, I had learned by then, that you can get tea, and they're trying to con you and sell you a bag of tea, And so I'm saying, "Man, what the hell is this?" And I could see he started getting nervous. He's all right, man. He's all right now. All right now. I said, "Hey," and I gave him a few MFs and don't try to walked away from him. But he was scared I was going to jump him, and I said, "Hey, I really don't want him to jump me."
Yeah, exactly.
But old Bob was pretty good with his stuff, though. He really was.
So how long did you do on dope for?
It was a matter of months, maybe about 2 or 3 months or something like that. I was out there. Jerry Chavis was out there. They gave Jerry a hooker as his cover, if you will. And Jerry used to tell me about it. He said, "That was a good old girl. She was just Jerry, a good old country boy from Ohio." And he was saying she was just a good person, And I hate to see the condition she was in and all. But she would say, "Well, Jerry, let's get this guy over here, And she'd lead him all around to all the. He was doing pretty goddamn good. But Jerry had a heart. And he saw how this decent person was out there as a hooker. And now she's out there as a police informant. He was just Jerry's a good man. Good guy.
Did you have a classic probation after that?
That's interesting you said that, because once the BI program was over, and I'm in court a lot now, I was sent to Central. And I remember Charlie Evans. That was the name of the old sergeant. Everybody knew Sergeant Charlie Evans. And that's some history when I say that, because, some of these sergeants, and they didn't have AWCs in those days, but some of them had some pretty goddamn good reputations, and he certainly did have a great reputation. Everybody liked him, respected him. But I remember he was showing the new crop in, and some of them were out of the new probationary class, and I'd already been out there. And so I remember I had a mustache, because you couldn't have one in the academy. Excuse me, so I'd grown me a mustache and all that, and he was telling, he said, "What's that on your mouth?" I said, "That's my mustache." And so he said, "Well, just don't get one of those." He was talking about the goatee. Yeah, see that? You the guy he was talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't you get one of those. No. But then I remember there was no break-in for me. I came from the academy to the bio program to a black and white by myself.
You worked as an Elcar?
Elcar, initially. And then they gave me a great guy, Anglo guy. And he was good. And I'm trying to think of his name right now. But he was a good cop.
How big was Central back then?
Who knows?
Big area.
How big was the department? You see what I'm talking about? It certainly wasn't anything like even the low numbers that we have. I think we're less than 8,000. I think we're 7,900 now.
Yeah.
And then, when you think about that, also look at the population of the city of LA. We certainly weren't. I think they try to say 3.8 million now. Yeah. I've been quoting 4 point for the last 5 years. So I don't know what it is, but I keep hearing them say 3.8, million people. Well, we didn't have that. We certainly didn't have all that. And so, doing the job, I think it was a little bit better. But you took me to school today. You really, really have. Oh my God, I can't believe that. And I can't wait to talk to my good buddies, who we talked all the time. I talked to my dear friend, the Chief, Bernard Parks. I talked to my dear friend, Julius Davis, the Assistant Chief, and a whole slew of others, We get together, and it's a good thing.
That's so cool.
We got to
it's cooler than cool, no doubt about it.
We got to get them on.
I know.
Oh, I'll tell you, I'll tell you the guy that would be wonderful to have on, who's suffering right now, Joe Roseanne. Now you know the name, right?
I know the name.
Do you know the name?
What's the name again?
Joe Roseanne, Rouzan.
No.
Joe Roseanne is really one of my mentors. Bernard Parks was one of my mentors. Daryl Gates is one of my mentors. There are a couple of others in there. But sure enough, Joe lost his wife about 2 or 3 months ago after umpteen years of marriage. Great family, one of the greatest families in LA. Excuse me, folks. And Joe's still suffering from that loss. Yeah, where was I? Yes,
No worries.
Oh, just about Central.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about you didn't have. It didn't seem like you had a classic probation. So I was curious about the training officers back then, right? So I look at my training officers. They were street cops in the '80s, and I look at that that was cool. They were trained by coppers who were in the Korean War. And we're not that far removed, kind of from history. Mm-hmm. So you came on in the early '60s. Your training officers would have been coppers in the '40s. They're World War II vets, and that when you think about their training officers, in the '20s, maybe it's kind of I wonder if that affected how they trained.
Well, I bet it does because remember there's this old adage you keep hearing that some recruits got out of the academy, jumped in the car with this guy who says, "Okay, kid, forget all that bullshit you learned in the academy. Now I'm going to show you how to really do police work." Mm-hmm. You heard that, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And so that's what I'm saying. It depended on who your training officer was. Now, we didn't call them training officers. You know that.
I did it.
We didn't call them training
you didn't have P3s when that came about.
Well after.
Later on.
Well after this whole structure. And it's a great thing to identify those who have shown the ability to train. But I work with two black guys. I think it was in weekend assignments. You know how you go out for a weekend assignment?
Okay.
And so you would do it with traffic and you do it with patrol. And I work with a guy by the name of George Lewis and Norm Edelin. They were like the difference between night and day. No doubt about it. Norm was a very angry man, rightfully so. He didn't like how black people were treated on the department and how black people were treated in the streets. So he was a very angry man. George was more diplomatic, more reasonable. He'll work from within to make changes and what have you. Norm quit after a while. He said, I'm done with this. LAPD is bull. And he went on to start be a writer. And I think if you could look now, you'd find books by Norm Edlin. But anyhow, George said, I like LAPD. I don't like some of the things it does, but I like LAPD. He promoted up to commander. He was the first executive officer in the chief's office of color. Worked for Ed Davis. Right now, he's living up in Oregon or Washington or someplace right now. You know, high-rise home overlooking the bay someplace, you know. So he did quite well. Norm just passed away most recently. But I mean, you know, some people can work within the system and, you know, deal with the negative. And some people say, the hell of it, I'm going to kill somebody if I stay here. And so anyhow, so I work with them on a weekend assignment. I enjoy the hell out of it. Excuse me, folks. And then I'm trying to think of this guy that I was assigned with out of Central. And boy, he was good. His name will come up as I talk.
So they weren't like training officers, they're just other coppers.
Other cops.
You're going to train this new cop.
That's right. That was it. You know what? I gotta get past this one though, because we were talking about you said something on your phone, your city phone, about barricaded suspects. I had to
the
give
roll call
you-
training. Yeah.
Pardon?
The roll call training.
Yeah.
How that came up.
I'm gonna tell you something. As a young police officer, gung ho. I remember I was at the scene of a barricaded suspect. And that was before we had SWAT. Before we had SWAT. And I'm sure you have some stories, if you've heard them in the academy or whatever, about before SWAT. So the story says, Moore, go into the station and get a flak jacket. You know what that was?
I mean,
So the bomber cruiser store,
yeah,
like one of
I
those
think I
type
know
of
what it
jackets.
is.
Bigger than that.
Okay.
It was a big old,
Size of this table, you throw it on yourself.
a big old bulletproof vest thing from here all the way down. Arms sticking out, but it was all bulletproof, the whole thing. I wonder what those things are. I bet they got one at the museum.
Like almost like a bomb suit, right?
It was. No doubt.
This is on top of your already bulletproof you're already wearing.
Listen,
They didn't have bulletproof.
on my whole time,
They didn't issue bulletproof
none. We
vests
had
back
no
then.
vest or nothing. All that time I served out in the field, it was never a vest. Okay, you like that? But anyhow, I head into there to the watch commander's office and grab this. I need the vest. Okay. Got in the car. Boom. Drive out to the scene. Get out there. Bring the vest up. Got it, Sarge. This guy's a barricaded suspect inside the house. What did the sergeant tell me?
Go in.
Go get them.
He said, get that vest and go get that bastard Moore. I got him. Give me a shotgun. I got his ass. I'm headed up there.
I love that.
You do?
I'm just saying that.
Did you see the Lord following me?
Yeah, I
The
know.
Lord must have been following me.
And then there's that part of it. Yeah, for sure.
I'm
I
telling
get it. I
you,
get it.
honestly.
What was he armed with?
I don't know. Hell, I was going to get it. I was going to get him.
I'm just talking about that mentality. So something I was I'll let you finish your story.
No.
It's so these days we have tasers on our hips,
Oh, you got everything.
bulletproof vests.
You got everything.
Some people have two batons,
And you got brain too.
right? We have cameras.
Yeah.
All these things really. When we came on, there was no cameras, and I could tell how these things, even the tasers being mandated to be honest,
Yeah.
slowly kind of changed how we approached situations.
Big time.
It also changed the camera, especially changed this cop versus criminal cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
That way we talk to each other, the unwritten rules.
Right, that's
Right.
right.
So just out of curiosity, you had 6 rounds,
Yeah.
no bulletproof vest, no taser.
No taser.
And comparing that to
No helmet, no nothing.
comparing that to what you know now or what you experience later in your
Yeah.
career, how do you think how's the relationship between the cop and the criminal industry? How's that changed over
I'm
time?
going to tell you something. Unfortunately, I think that we have brainwashed police officers this whole macho thing. And for God, they don't show no fear, right? Even though when we used to go up on top of a building, until this is before sergeants had the ladders in their car, but you go up. I had a guy, Dave, I can't think of Dave's last name. Those drainage pipes.
Mm-hmm.
He could climb up the whole goddamn pipe on the roof, clear the roof. Period. Hey, it's clear. Let's go. Next call. But anyhow, macho. I was macho. I didn't have a brain, but I was macho. I'm going up there. Hey, I'm gonna get him, and I was gonna get him, or either die, and it'd probably be the latter. It's amazing. So thank God, that we've had, tactics training. That we did come up with guys who seem that that's all they do is train. And I say that not as a big criticism of Metro, but I worked Metro, and so train. Hey, we need 50 officers. Oh, we got to train. Yeah, right. But anyhow.
How long were you at Central for?
Well, I can't tell you that. They rotated you for the first 3 divisions, right? That's what they did. You had 3 divisions. So you go to one. After you spend a year there, you go to another one. Then you go to your 3rd one. Then after you can go where you want to go.
Really?
I went to Central University / Southwest, and then Hollywood. And then you have to think about that Hollywood. When I went to Hollywood, great division. My sergeant out there was the felony car sergeant. And sure enough, I was selected to work the felony car, which was great.
What was the felony car?
You could, what I'll tell you could do. First of all, you could wear plain clothes, right out of patrol. But you also converse with the detectives. Hey, we got a warrant for this guy out here. If you happen to get by him, find him, bring his butt in here.
Like a Z car, maybe.
Yeah, we call them felony cars. But anyhow,
So plain clothes, plain car?
well, uniform and plain clothes.
Okay.
Right. We had a good time. And I got a sterling reputation out there. You have to think about what else is happening in the world. And I was out there in '65 doing the riot, and then I think I was on the South End in '68, the mini riot. But anyhow, there's some.
How were the riots in '65?
Terrible.
Like how did that start for you?
Well, I'll tell you now, I was still in Hollywood. And I remember, it was a mess, as you well know. And I remember my partner and I said, we can't be left out of this. No brain. So I remember us saying, let's go down and deal with that. Now, we're in Hollywood.
Well, how did you hear about it? It was over there.
It's all over the radio, yeah. Yeah, we knew things were going down. And so sure enough, we started heading down. I didn't talk to nobody. Let's go. Let's go get into the fray. And I remember we got into Wilshire pretty goddamn good, and we said, maybe we shouldn't do this, Put the UE in, went back there and handled whatever was happening there. Those were bad times, though. They were bad times. And you still hear people talking about the riot, and you still people talking about, was it Normandy and where?
Florence.
Florence and Normandy, yeah. And, and like I say, the mini riot was in 68. But,
Was that when Martin Luther King was killed?
you know what? Don't give me the line. I forget why we had the mini riot. I just forget it. I don't remember.
It was related to the main watch riots, I think.
Could have been, yeah. I just don't remember at this moment.
Yeah, I think Nick Barbara was talking about
Was
it.
he really?
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
on probation during I
Okay.
think that mini riot.
Is that right? Yeah. Yeah.
What was you experienced both the watch riots and the LA riots?
Well,
What were some differences, some interesting things you saw?
now, when you're saying the LA, are you talking about 92?
92.
That was very interesting. I was a commander then, I think, yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But it was a big difference. I don't think that, if we had to relive Florence and Normandy, we were outnumbered. And when they pulled out, that was even the worst thing, And there are people still pointing the fingers as to whose fault that was. That was not good, though. And I think about Reginald Denny, that poor man, taking his truck and driving down the street, Horrible. Absolutely horrible. So I'm not an authority on any of those riots. I remember when I was at 77 as a sergeant, and I remember I had a whole group of coppers out there with me. We were in Watts.
What year was this?
I have to think when I was a sergeant.
You're talking about the riots, so maybe 92-ish, right?
You know what? All I remember, I can tell you right now, it wasn't 92. 92, heck, like I say, I was a commander.
Oh,
then.
that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I was a sergeant out there, so it had to be maybe even the mini riot. I don't know what. Yeah, maybe I made sergeant in 68. I don't know. But I remember we were out there at Will Rogers Park, 103rd and Central Avenue. And we had to control some people. Bad stuff. Bad stuff. But anyhow, like I say, all of that stuff led to us learning lots of lessons
Oh yeah.
about how to deal with the community and how the community learned some lessons too. I remember I look at things about Angela Davis now because I worked intelligence division too, and that was back in I worked it as a let me see. Well, I knew I worked it as a sergeant because I had one of the best partners in the world. It's Elber Minix, and poor Zell's dead now. But and then he was Ed's partner too, a classmate and best friend, and the whole thing.
And those good guys.
Yeah, but Zell and I were partners. I'm trying to think of why I brought that up. Oh, I remember meeting Angela Davis because out there at Will Rogers Park, there was a bus that were going to take everybody to D.C. And I looked up and I said, God, dog. That lady wore a pair of jeans like nobody ever seen in my life. Don't tell her I said that. But anyhow, because I see her on Facebook now, and her and Toni Morrison and what have you. But anyhow, like I say, those were interesting times, the 60s. They really were. Boy, the country was rocking. It really was. And not everything was good.
How did you get into an intelligence division?
Because of my talents, I was good. No, I'll tell you what happened. I mentioned Joe Roseanne to you earlier. Juvenile Division came up with a unit that they wanted to be out and about. And they called it the Community Problems Unit of Juvenile Division. Community Problems Unit. And Joe Roseanne was selected as the sergeant over that unit. So he selected some guys. He had a black crew and a brown crew. Two great guys, Joseph Viles and Jess Rodriguez, were on the Mexican side. And it was myself, Phil Cox, and Bob Young were on the black side. And that's what we did. We floated around from schools and communities dealing with issues. Community Problems Unit of Juvenile Division of all things. And so at some point, now I'm going to try to get to your question, at some point in time, we were doing, I think, in the department's eyes, such a good job that they had openings in the intelligence division. These guys know everybody. They're all the players. And so, boom, next thing you know, we were in the intelligence division. And that was really a great job. Oh, I'm telling you, that was a great job. Especially when we were dealing with infiltrations of organizations into high schools and junior high schools, trying to manipulate kids to join them and trying to organize those kids towards walkouts and all this kind of stuff.
Like political groups or?
Or even militant groups,
Okay.
My God, I can't tell you the involvements that we had with the Panthers. Oh, man, in the US organization, you know who Ron Karinga is, right?
Ed was talking about him. Ed Brimmer.
Yeah,
he brought him out.
Yeah, you know who he is? Right now,
No.
if you picked up the Sentinel, he writes an article.
Okay.
And he calls himself Maulana Ron Karinga. His name is really da-da-da-da, if you want the real deal. But anyhow, he ran a little organization called the US Organization, US, down there on Broadway. They had the US headquarters. This is in the 60s. This is when things were, militants here and we over there.
Mm.
And were assigned to the US organization. And that was a team. That was a real serious team. They carried a shoulder to holster, double.
I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah, why don't you do that? They even introduced themselves to Steve McQueen. We ran into him one day, and they was showing him what they're carrying.
Wow.
Two 357 Magnums.
Cowboy stuff.
Serious, but I'm gonna tell you, and crazy.
Yeah.
They were both. It was crazy. No kidding. I loved him, but he was crazy. I'm not kidding. If I ever find his business card, I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Because he had a business card that pretty much identified who he was. He was an expert in everything he did. And on the back of that card, he had everything that he was expert in this business card. I hope I have that card. It's like a collector's item. And, expert Porsche driver. He bought a Porsche. He knew everything about it, and he tested it in every way he could. And the La Brea Hill was his place. He would see how fast he could go up and how fast he could come down. He was cameras. The guy had a studio in his back, in his back of the house. Only one key to it, and he had it. And sure enough, he had his he did photography like you would never believe.
So like a dark room and chemicals.
Everything.
You how many paces to each station, all that stuff.
Everything.
That's cool.
And then he had his own private phone out there.
Who is this guy?
I won't go into that, but
all right.
but he was a great cop. I mean, and he was assigned to the US organization. And by the way, put a little check mark on me talking about other people, okay? I don't know if I want that out there.
No worries.
I'm beginning to rattle too much.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah. No, but sure enough, they got into his head, and he started taking pictures on the inside and everything. Here, let me take a picture of this. Let me take a picture of that. Oh, this is a great place. You know what I'm talking about? Now,
Yeah.
he's working intelligence.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
This is right in there.
Isn't that cool?
I mean, when Polaroids were out, everybody was taking Polaroids, right?
Yeah.
And then the flip phone came out. Now we have iPhones.
It's unbelievable.
Everything's
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. But anyhow, there's some great stories and great situations that truly, spell out the history of LAPD. Great place.
Now, you mentioned you worked a felony car. We're going just back it up a little bit.
In Hollywood.
In Hollywood. Did you know Ian Campbell?
I did not know Ian Campbell, and that was 62, wasn't it, or 63?
I believe 63.
It was, yeah, because you know what, I think about that. He and Carl Hettinger, I think about them, but I didn't know them, and I don't think I was there when they got kidnapped and one of them got killed. In fact, the interesting story about that, I was out at Forest Lawn. I seemed to have this fetish, this fascination for cemeteries. When I was in France, one of the first places I wanted to go was to a cemetery. And they are awesome places. And if you've never been to Evergreen, you ever been to Evergreen Cemetery?
Yeah, my great grandparents are buried there. I go there every now and again.
You know the history of Evergreen.
Right.
The Sepulveda family is there. Mm-hmm. There's so many of these
Van Nuys,
Lancashire, all these noted families that built this city, or at least played some portion of it, are there.
Wow.
Take a walk through there one day.
I will, yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, I go through there every now and then.
Yeah, and the same thing with Angeles
Rosedale.
Yeah, Rosedale. You went down there. It's Normandy and Washington. Mm-hmm. Great history there. But anyhow, I started talking about cemeteries. Why did I do that?
Brought up Ian Campbell.
Oh, yeah. One day I was at Forest Lawn, and I'm just walking around there, just looking over the hill. And I looked down, and it was, let's see, who died? Campbell died, wasn't it?
Campbell died.
And Hettinger killed himself later. Died
on.
anyhow. Yeah, and there was Ian Campbell. I said, I'll be God dog.
Really?
Didn't plan on it, didn't even think about it, but looked down and I thought it was amazing. But, okay.
Do you know the story about that? What happened?
Yeah, the onion field, huh? Yeah, very much so. Training, I remember afterwards my partner said, what's our code word? We started talking about what's our code word, And the other part is we kept saying what the department had already said, don't you ever give up your gun. Now, that's easy to say. It really is. But I don't know what any one of us would do when somebody's putting a gun right in your face.
Or to your partners.
Or your partner,
Yeah.
And so these guys, and one was the guy, Jimmy Smith, and I can't think of the other guy, the murderers. But no, they weren't going back to prison.
Yeah. It's interesting how our tactics are developed by bad circumstances, tragedy.
You're right.
But
it's written in blood.
Yeah, it really is. And I don't want to get into this, but I see a lot of our tactics kind of devolving in the sense of because of how it looks to the public, and I feel like we're forgetting our history.
Yeah, you're right. I bet. Now, I don't know.
I don't know if devolving is a word, but you know what I mean. It's kind of digressing.
Going backwards.
I don't know if I have a circumstance that I can suggest. Can you suggest a circumstance?
You mean an example, or
example? Yeah, an example circumstance. Yeah.
I'd say maybe a felony prone, how we approach them when they're underground. I'd say just the mentality of thinking de-escalation first on the forefront of your mind when you're approaching a potentially violent situation really makes us hesitate because we're worried about the way it looks to the public rather than the reality of the violence we face.
I don't disagree with it. I think that's great to hear you say that because sometimes I think we overreact. And I'll say that because I remember as a captain at Hollywood, I'd respond on a lot of stuff. And I remember responding to a guy who had broken the door of a goddog bank and was in there sitting on the counter. He was just sitting up there. And by the time I get there, boy, I mean, we were out there. Everybody's got a gun pointed at him. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I mean, the first story I tell you, this guy's a dingbat. You know, the first thing you think in your mind. So why are we out here all clustered up, ready to bombs away? And so another situation, they had a guy sitting on a bus bench. And I rode up there, and all the troops were back here, and there was two of them hiding behind a car. And so when I rode up, I'm going where these guys are. The guy's sitting on the bench over here. And he said, Cap, this way. And I went over there, and I'm saying, he's just sitting on a bus bench, you know. Now, I don't think we had tasers in those days, too. And I'll tell you, you got equipment now that less than lethal. I like that, you know. But I think everybody was just overreacting to a guy who broke into a guide dog bank and was sitting there like a wacko he was, you know. And everybody was ready to, you know, do deadly things to him.
But we definitely need to like learn from our mistakes too.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't think every change is a bad one, but you know, when you're out there and you hear some of the changes, I try to look at the big picture.
Yeah.
And see maybe where CommenSAP is trying to go. I'm not just saying that.
Right.
It keeps me from getting frustrated and really upset. I'm kind of like that other friend who was really just mad and went on to be a writer.
Yes, right. I hear you.
I kind of lean towards that. Yeah. But even so, I wanted to ask you, you know, your career expands decades with LAPD. It seems to be from doing other podcasts too that this agency is truly one of innovation that tries a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And
for the better.
Where they're working on, they keep trying new things. And there's been so much that's happened here, right?
Right.
The riots, you had the Olympics here, you know, the Rampart stuff. So many things that have happened here. Even recently, George Floyd. So given your experience, and I jotted down a few people here, you've worked under so many chiefs. Chief Parker, who changed culture in LAPD. Daryl Gates, who I think was the last kind of political, or somebody who had to answer to politics. You worked with Willie Williams.
You know how many chiefs I worked for?
Bernard Parks. How many?
10.
Yeah.
Now, you know why I say 10?
I counted.
It's because you had the interim chiefs in there too.
Right.
So I count them. I give them their pound.
So just all these great names you've worked under, and you were command staff yourself. What can you say about, and this is something that I kind of, you know, focus on a lot of, is what can you say about leadership over the years and where it is now, the positive, and what could be improved?
I think that's a great, great, great question. And I say that because, I think I've come up to the conclusion that certain chiefs were good for their time. And if you know the history of LAPD, and both of you do, Bill Parker, he was right for his time. Who else could have taken this ragtag, beat-up organization that we had and changed it like Parker did, along with Dragnet, along with, you know, Adam 12? Who could change the image of who we were? You know, you have to remember, what do they call them? Wartime relief. You know what that's all about?
I know the term.
Yeah, it's when, and I may not be saying exactly correct, but war emergency or something like that. But the guys came right out of the Army, no training, put on a guide dog uniform, and now you're LAPD. No training.
Wow.
Can you imagine what that was like? And then you have to think about how corrupt the city of LA was. The mayor was corrupt. His brother was a guide dog bagman and went on and did the collections. And like I say, I
mean, still have some of that going on now.
I hope not. I sure hope not.
Probably not in that way.
Yeah, well, not like that.
Not as blatant, but I hear you.
But we had 6 get arrested so far?
Oh yeah, we've
recently.
Yeah, that one guy, I can't think of his name right now, but you're right. And sadly, there will be corruption. Sadly, I mean, greed is everywhere. It is absolutely everywhere. But you know, going back to those chiefs, you know, when I think about when Bill Parker was selected as chief of police, and if I'm not mistaken, he was a captain and was elevated to chief, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
And I've done my own history, and I even did a little video on LAPD and all this good stuff. But Parker was the right man, and he came in, and you couldn't even cohabitate. Cohabitating with a woman that was not your wife, was a firing offense. And he brought the esprit de corps to the department. So Bill Parker was the guy that was right for his time. I'm trying to think about, and Daryl Gates was his driver, as you well know, at one point in time of his career. But Parker, they say that there were 3 power sources in the city of LA back in the day. One was the mayor of the city, the LA Times, and the chief of police. They were the bad butts, they were the badasses that ran the city.
Interesting.
And the chief of police kept his files on who did what. Oh, Joe Blow, who was some big politician, got pulled over for deuce. That went in the chief's file. And he powerful people. The LA Times, the mayor, and the chief of police, the 3 most powerful people in the city. I was going to say I got weird in the book, but that doesn't matter right now. But anyhow, so as you come up, when you think about when Parker died, chief for 16 years, and then I think Tom, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it Tom Redden after him, who was a good man, but there was another guy who stood out better than all of them as it relates to being able to relate to everybody in the community, and that was Jim Fisk. Never made chief, but he didn't get selected. And then as you keep going through the chiefs that we had, what's his name? Ed Davis. Ed Davis was a great chief, an absolute great chief. And certainly Dale Gates was the great chief from my perspective. I was selected as his adjutant in the Office of Operations, and that was a good job. That was a good job. And I don't suggest to you that it was because I was so sterlingly great and all this good stuff. And I say to some people, I said, if it had anything to do with my skin tone, that's okay with me. I don't know. I got in that office and learned an awful lot. And so whatever he got out of that, because he was an assistant chief, he wasn't chief. Mm-hmm. And if that helped him become chief, I don't know. He didn't parade me around, hey, I got Maurice here. But he was a good chief. He was a great chief.
One question for you.
Yeah.
When you came on, what was your goal on the department?
I didn't have a goal other than, I always looked at it from this perspective, not knowing the organization. Mm-hmm. And then it took me a little while to understand, the system, the promotional system. And I like what OJB and other organizations are doing now, is saying, let's talk to these kids and say, hey, we bring you under my wing. Here's how you study. Here's how you build your career. And I keep looking at stuff that OJB is putting out right now about training sessions and motor openings. Motor openings? What are you talking about? Motor openings? When I went to TED and knocked on the door, I stood there at the door and thought, wow, I'm going to like sitting on that motorcycle. But then you don't promote if you go to motors. I turned around and walked away, because that was my mindset that, hey, I don't want to be riding on a motorcycle for the rest of my life. And they do. Mm-hmm. Some of them do. Not all bad, but anyhow. So anyhow, you can keep going through all the different chiefs. What I liked about Gates is that he did support the troops. He, God, out to his detriment to sometimes. And don't be Metro, oh Lord. Yeah, I used to think about him. Like I say, I have such much. I'll use these two words. I have love and respect for Del Yates because I knew who he was, and he relaxed enough to talk to me about a lot of stuff. He did. He relaxed, and so anyhow, and I'll never put on this mic, but anyhow, just a good man.
Another question. What was your leadership style? Because I talked to some people that are still on that know you, and they all have great things to say, and you're a really nice guy, and
That's good to hear.
yeah, but for a lot of command staff, like now, you don't really hear too much about that. When you go to retirements, you don't really have like rank and file at their retirements. You know, it's usually peers. So I just wanted to know, like, what was your style?
You know something? I always thought I respected everybody, and I'm gonna tell you something. I called a P2, sir. I just respected him. You know, you got a job, and then none of us are infallible. None of us. And I'll tell you, but I was pretty serious about discipline. I really was pretty serious about discipline. I remember talking to supervisors at some roll call that we had. It was only a supervisors meeting. And I remember making this statement to the sergeants and the lieutenants who were there. I said, you know, sometimes some of us don't have the courage to ask the serious question. What do I mean by that? Don't have the courage to ask the serious question of the troops.
You could mean a lot of things. I mean, if they don't have the courage to ask the serious questions.
Yeah.
They're trying to mask the truth. They don't want to hear the truth, maybe.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Because if you tell me the truth, I got to do something about it. And I had a guy that I respect as a sergeant. I think he finally made lieutenant. And I remember him telling me later on, he said, you know what, I heard that loud and clear. Let me give you an example. You hear a unit getting code one. They got a call for code one, they don't respond. And you happen to be at the boundary of perhaps Rampart and Wilshire. And then sure enough, you see them flying out of Wilshire into Rampart. Now, what's the question? Where in the hell you been? Why are you getting code one? Where you been? But some sergeants don't want to ask that question because they're going to say, you know,
They don't want to know.
They don't want to know because they're going to have to do something. And I took that to heart. You know, I'd ask the guy in a heartbeat, hey, whoa. When you finish what you're doing, let's talk. And what took you so long to get here? Why were you code one? You know, blah, 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 blah. Some people didn't like that. You questioning me? You got dog right I am. You know, it's hard sometimes to be a good supervisor if you're not willing to confront. And so that's just a thought of mine. But you were talking. But the question. Who asked the question? You asked the question. We were talking about
Your style.
Yeah, I like I say, and that's interesting too. You know, my field responsibilities were not that long because when I was a sergeant, I had just come out of intelligence division. I worked, you know, the field for it was a matter of months. And intelligence says, hey, come on back. We got a job for you as a sergeant. And so that was good. And then when I went to team policing back in those days, which was a great thing.
Is it team?
Team, T-E-A-M.
Team.
Yeah, have you heard of team policing?
I have not.
Have you heard of team policing?
Mm-mm.
Really? You know, that's interesting. See, that's part of our history that's being lost.
Yeah.
Excuse me, because I came under Ed Davis. And we had teams. Team 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You know, at 77th where I was. I was a lieutenant in team 1 and the other lieutenants over the other teams. I was responsible for my uniform people and for my detectives, period. So, but the sad thing was bad about that. The AWC conducted all the roll calls. So my uniform people up in roll call, with the AWC telling them how the cow ate the cabbage. And then sure enough, I'm down here doing paperwork and dealing with, and I'll tell you what you did, 77th, it was broke up into teams. This box over here was 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So you took the whole division and broke it up. So that's interesting.
I think that's evolved.
So a watch or actual unit?
Did that evolve to like the senior lead office where?
It sure did. Well, that came afterwards.
Yeah.
But you said to a what?
Was that a watch? A
No,
specific
no,
watch, or was it?
It was that I had. What did I have? Team 4 or 5? No, I didn't have 5. That was Waller. But I had a community that was mine. I was the chief of police of that community. Team policing. So my detectives were assigned to that community. My officers were assigned to that. Now, that doesn't mean that they stay there. They can all over the place. But you try to take care of your area. Team policing under Ed Davis. Research it.
Okay.
Because
And what year was that?
Oh, boy. I want to think. Let's see, I'm trying to think of when I made lieutenant. I want to think it was in the
I saw
80s.
it in the book. It was 75.
Was it 75?
Oh yeah, in the book.
Holy
Did the book
moly,
get you
was it
signed?
75? Okay, yeah. How do I know? Maybe. I made captain in 80. That's what it was. Yeah.
So this was prior to Southeast.
Yeah.
So it went all the way down to the harbor.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, team policing was, Ed Davis was a very smart man. He really was. Team policing. That was an era that I thought was good. I'm trying to think when the senior leads actually came on. But different chiefs, different styles, different times. Different effectiveness. Poor Willie Williams, political assignment, which was really a terrible, terrible decision. And a political one, very political. Didn't want to select somebody from within. Terrible.
Where do you come from? You come from Philadelphia?
Philadelphia. Yeah.
He seemed very. He signed my Explorer ID. I was an Explorer.
Oh, did he? Good. Good.
But
yeah.
he seemed very kind of quiet, not really strong opinionated, like he was placed there.
You know why?
I don't know how.
Because he was just wrong. He was just wrong for LAPD. I'm going to tell you something. I remember, when the candidates who were there, and certainly Bernard Parks was one of them, and, our mayor, the man I love, Tom Bradley, Jess Brewer, who I respected, and they made the decision to reach outside the department and get somebody. And, that was a terrible decision. I mean, the decision would have been good if the guy had been qualified.
Yeah.
But
Interesting to hear that from someone.
well, the sad thing, Willie, was he came and he didn't come with the luxury of some chiefs do when they go places. What did Bratton do when he came here? How many people did he bring with him?
I don't know.
Well, he did bring a jerk that you see on TV all the time now. Back in New York, calls himself a god dog. What I want to think of the last name is Miller. But anyhow,
not sure.
He brought about 2 or 3 people with him, and so that way, he had his eyes below him too.
Yeah.
and Willie came with nobody but Willie, and he was scared. He didn't know who to trust, and sadly, my attitude was, he can't fail because he fails, the department fails. That was my attitude. And I remember going down to San Diego to a seminar. And this was somewhat titled A Change Manner or Change in Organizational Change or whatever. And the guy that was teaching this class, you know, every now and then you find the guy, he takes his thing on the road. Wherever he goes, he's got these bullet points. He's showing how to change the organization. I thought it was good. I thought it was really good. And apparently a lot of other people thought it was good. So I came back from that meeting. Nobody directed me to do a god dog thing but go there, and enjoy myself. But I went there and I came back and I said, this guy would be good to talk to the staff of LAPD because we got a new chief. I wrote this thing, 15-2. They still call him 15-2?
They do.
That hasn't changed?
That hasn't changed.
I wrote my 15-2, shot it to the chief. And I was recommending that he bring this guy in. I talked about how he had talked about changing our organizational changes, all this kind of stuff. What did he do with it? Give me a clue. What do you think he did with it?
Burn box?
Or
Almost.
Or made it his own?
No.
Stole it?
Which would have been, that would have been wonderful. He sent it back to me. No action. No action. I said, okay, I'm on your team now, boss. I'm on your team, but I'm trying to help you. So it just, he didn't know who to trust, and then obviously he had no idea about earthquakes and riots. What did he do with the earthquake? You know that. Yeah. What did he do with the riots? Same thing. That's what Bernie Parks. I remember him making in a public setting one time, and I think Williams was there, and he said, hey, we gave this guy an earthquake, and we gave him a fire. I guess he's not going away, so.
I guess you would have to, as the top dog, it's about your support system, because you don't have to have every single SOP memorized, right?
Yeah.
But you got your support system.
Thank you.
And if you don't have that, I could see how that could work against you.
And that's part of you talking about your management style. With my management style, everybody that is going to be any kind of manager that has success, surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. It makes a difference. Oh, my God.
The right energy.
Yeah, right. And you know what? People that say, you got to be kidding. You don't want to do that. I think about one of my best friends right now is Wally Graves. You know Wally Graves?
The name sounds familiar, but I don't.
Wally he retired as a Captain 3, and he was at Pacific. But he's one of my best friends right now. In fact, he'll be coming down with his big old beautiful RV, and I'm gonna go in there and bring him a bottle of wine, and we're gonna sit there and talk. But he's just a great guy.
That's cool.
And anyhow, so how are we fixed?
Good. I was going to kind of bounce around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple of, we could talk forever. I have 100 questions about the watch, right? 100 questions about the Ramparts. If you enjoyed this, we could definitely come back to it, maybe get some specific stuff. But I had some final kind of questions, but, after.
Oh, it's up to you. How long you keep it going.
It's all good. But we just riff. It doesn't matter. But I have a couple last questions on my end.
Sure.
What's your advice for a young copper coming on, and your advice for an old dog copper who's about to retire?
Yeah.
And we'll follow that up with, I'll remind you, something to share any regrets you have in your career.
Something for the young police officer. I see them on TV, not on TV, but on Facebook.
Yeah.
I see them. I don't know a lot right now. I'll tell you what, once again, this is educational for me, what I've learned just talking to the two of you. And I just say, keep your nose clean, study hard, and in the words of Frank Beeson, retired lieutenant who's passed away, if you promote every opportunity you get, you can see how much more money you'll be making. So set your goals Don't have to, don't, like I said, went to Motors and stood at the door and said, this ain't for me. Decide your career. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to work? What's going to enhance your ability to promote from one to the other? Buy those goddamn stripes, put them in front of you and think about them all the time. Buy those bars, put them in front of you. I've had people give me theirs. Hey, you ain't done yet, So that would be my suggestion. Keep your nose clean, number one. Don't do stupid stuff. And then for the old timer that's about to leave, have you done all you want to do? Have you done all you want to do? It is a great organization. It has its faults like any other company, but it's a great organization. So be sure that you really know what you want to do. And, is there another stripe, another bar, another star? Why not if you can? So that's my advice to him.
Any regrets?
Oh,
Career-wise?
I tell you what, Frank Beeson said, if you come in, I think you in 3 years you can take the sergeant's exam. Am I correct?
Right. I think
Okay.
it's 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's right around there.
Okay. So I'm saying that if you know that coming in, then come in saying that I want to supervise. And the only way you're going to do that is to get on the list and get up there where you're promotable. So it's like any organization. If you go into the goddamn insurance company, do you want to be the agent running around from door to door? You want to buy insurance? Or you want to be the guy that signs off on that? So I say that take advantage of every opportunity, that's available to you. And
So do you have any regrets?
do I? Oh yeah. So mine was. It took me a little while to get on board as to the process. I took my first sergeant's exam, and I said they ain't going all the way down there. And I think I took my next one, and then finally I said, oh, that's not bad. And then I decided to coast again. So my first time as lieutenant, I said, boom. I said, well, they ain't going all the way down there. And I don't know if I took it 2 or how many times before I passed, but anyhow, when I say pass, I passed every time, but, where they're promotable.
Right.
I got serious one time. I got fanatical. I told my wife, I said, this don't make no sense. I said, if I keep doing it like I'm doing it, I'll never be lieutenant. So sure enough, I sat down a 6-month period. In that goddamn manuals I showed you, okay, everything that I was going to study, I said, I'm going to read this to you. I said, when it comes time the exam, I'll be ready. I came out number 2 on the lieutenant's list. So it just shows if you try, if you program. So that I regret that because, like I say, Frank Beeson said, if you have got that 4 years, get on and you do that, and now you however long it takes for lieutenant, and the first time you do that, and then some guys are good at that. Dennis Lunder, I slap you hard, like to slap his head right now, because he was such a smart guy. He was just smart. I remember we were both lieutenants in Gates's office, and I had a stack of stuff like that on my desk. That when I could get a chance, I'd pull it out and look at it. I was the executive officer. He was the adjutant. He came in one day. He said, "What are you studying?" I said, "Hey, take what you want. Just bring it back, but take what you want." Now, this is about 2 weeks before the exam. That guy, boy, he came out number 5 or 6 on the guide dog list. And then I was down there. I made it, but I wasn't down there. And I'm thinking, that boy's just smart. But you know what it was, too? He had to approve, before he handed him to the chief of police, every special order that came in.
Oh, so you got to
And
study him before. Right?
He studied him, so sometimes it's the job that you're working.
Yeah.
He didn't write them,
Right.
but he did. He took them into the chief, and he knew what it said.
Yeah.
And if the chief had a question, he better have an answer. Or either Dennis was. I like Dennis. He walked in there. He was so cocky. He walked in there to the chief, and he says, "Maybe it's a letter," and it's gone through maybe the Office of Special Services or Office of Operations or whatever. All the way up from the guy who wrote it down there, all the way up through that assistant chief, boom, into the chief's office. Dennis got it, looked at it, and here's what he'd do. He would take the letter, and if page 2, he wanted to change it, he would change it. And he'd do his copy, and he says, okay, boss, here's the letter. The goings on is dealing with this, that, and the other. And Gates was a good listener. And he knew what to look for. And Dennis said, and by the way, he said, I have some issues with page 2, and I've taken the liberty to change it. That's a good adjutant. That's a good adjutant. He didn't say, all those jokes, he did this. Yes, I've taken the liberty to change it. And Dennis' attitude, I don't care what you do. I did the best. I gave it to you. And Gates would, boom, take his, and boom. You know, that's a good adjutant. That was a smart guy. So anyhow.
I have one more question. Kind
Yes,
of going
sir.
back to the beginning again. You were talking about, the higher you go, the more that you make. Starting out in 1961, what was the starting salary?
I don't know why I think it was $485 a month.
How much?
$485 a month.
All right.
You guys are rich. You guys are freaking rich. Isn't that crazy?
That is.
Yeah. But it was better than the job I had, which was a good job. But it was LAPD. I don't know how. I know how you do, as far as involving your family, father, cousins, whatever, in your success on the job. And I don't know how you do it, how you've done it thus far. I wished I had an opportunity to have my mom and dad in there. I don't know why it didn't happen. Every time I got promoted, they should have been sitting there. You know what I'm talking about? And so that's what I wish. I think about a failure. My dad, wonderful man. I mean, absolutely wonderful man. And you have to think about, I always say that when you talk about stuff like this, you got to think about the times that they lived in. Where is your family from?
My mom is from Guatemala. And my dad is from Thailand.
And from Thailand. Isn't there some Thailand? That's interesting. How do they hook up?
Language of love. The language of love.
I hear you. But I just think about that, they should have been there every time because I'm their product, period. Right. And I should have been there. They should have been there on every step.
Now, when were they born?
Where were they born?
When?
Oh, when? When? When and where?
Well, think about that. My dad was born in 1909, and my mom was born in 1915. And every time I talk about dates, I say, what was going on then? Oh, my Lord. This is one hell of a country at that time. Right. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. 1915. And every time I look at something in the news, even today, I think about, boy, we had a big family reunion, and we named the Andrew clan from Kaufman, Texas. That's where my mom was born, Kaufman, Texas.
What part of Texas is that?
I want to think it was about 30 miles somewhere southeast, west from Dallas.
Okay.
Excuse me. But the Andrews family, John and what was their name? I can't think right now. But anyhow, they had 10 kids, 8 boys and 2 girls. And you think about, when they were born, 18-something in Kaufman, Texas. And I don't know whether either one of you have done this, but I said I had to go to Kaufman one day. So I got on my airplane in L.A. and flew all the way down to Dallas, rented me a car alone, and drove to Kaufman because I wanted to know where I'm from. Where did I come from? And sure enough, I got there, and I went down to the little city hall that sat in the middle of the square, and I walked in there to where the birth records were, And I said, you know what? My mom was born in right here in Kaufman. What's her name? You know, and I said, Christine Andrew. And so sure enough, she brought a big ledger out. Big old ledger, and opened that sucker up. And she went down there, and there it was, my mom's name.
That's cool.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, that's real cool.
And then I was so happy to be there. I called my Aunt Ruby, and Aunt Ruby was the noted one in the family. She had, forget how many boys she had, maybe about 7 or 8 boys and 1 girl. The girl's the youngest one. She's the only one alive now. That's Aunt Ruby. I said, where am I? I said, guess where I am? She said, where are you, boy? I said, I'm in Kaufman. She said, what? What are you doing in Kaufman? Now, she was born in Kaufman. She knows all about Kaufman. I told her, I said, I just had to come and find out where I'm from, you know. So, sure enough, she said, well, here's what I want you to do. She said, go to the Bold, B-O-L-D, Pilgrim Church. She said, that's where we went to church. She says, then I want you to go to the cemetery. That's where your relatives are buried. He said, and then the house that we used to have was on Powell Hill. She said, go to Powell Hill. He said, stand on that dirt. That's where we were. You know, it was just quite a...
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, I left Powell Hill, and I was walking down the street, and I saw this old man sitting on the porch. And I waved at him, and, you know, country folks, hey, how you doing there? You know, they don't know who you are, but they're friendly. And so I said, can I talk to you a minute? And they said, yeah. So I walked up. Now I'm near Powell Hill. Powell Hill is over here, across the street. Now I'm walking past this man's house. I said, I'm visiting from California. Oh, California. Oh, that's awesome. So I said, I said, my family used to live here, the Andrew family. Oh, I know the Andrew family very well. I said, oh, you do? Now, this has been years ago. You know, he probably did and everybody else did. So anyhow, so he said, come on up here. And he said, Sally, come out here. One of these Andrew boys is here. I mean, it was a joy. And he said, yeah, I used to see your grandpa walking. I told him about the family. I used to see your grandpa walking by here every Sunday at church, you know. Mm. But it was, like I say, where are you from?
I'm from L.A.
But where's the family from?
So my grandfather, he's from Pasadena, and his dad is from South Carolina.
South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you ever go to South Carolina?
Never been.
You better get down there.
You got to get on that plane and rent a car.
That's right.
Well, you know what? I actually thought about doing that. Exactly what you're saying, because I have pictures, and then I've been on Ancestry, and then I found birth records, and I found my grandfather's. It would be my great grandfather. So my grandfather's mother, I found. It was a picture.
Is this paternal side or maternal side?
It's paternal side.
Okay.
I found his gravestone, and he died in 1909.
Okay.
And it's an old church cemetery.
Love it.
In Newberry.
Love it.
So yeah, I gotta.
You can't beat genealogy. You cannot beat it. I'm telling you, I love it. I love it. Oh my God.
I do too.
Yeah, I'm in on that. I'm very much so in on that. But anyhow, that visit to Kaufman was just a blessing. And it's been so long since I've been there, you know, because that's been years. Oh, my God. I've been living here roughly almost 20 years. And then so this was back, you know, maybe another 10 or 15 years. So it's been a long time. But you can't beat genealogy. Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Burton's a big history buff.
Yeah.
When we work together, he's just pointing at things. And, oh, you know, back in the day, I'm like, how do you know this stuff? Like, who knows these things? But it is very interesting. I learn something every time we work together.
Yeah,
so.
you know, I mean, with where we work, it's pretty historic. I mean, the Ambassador Hotel is there.
Oh,
Angeles.
I could cry every time I go past there.
By the way, across the street from the Ambassador Hotel is a bar called the HMS Bounty.
Okay.
And we're just talking about him. Jack Webb used to go there. and had
yeah,
drinks.
Yeah.
So there's a booth he used to sit at right by the door that goes to the bathroom, where his
Isn't
name
that
is there.
amazing?
Jack. They put his
Just
name
the
there,
Jack
Jack
Webb
Webb.
booth?
Isn't that
Yeah,
amazing?
it's pretty cool.
Right across from the ambassador. Is that
Yeah,
right?
it's RFK High School now.
Oh, yeah,
Because
yeah.
So, but yeah,
I remember that's the first time I went to an event there, and at the next table to me, sitting just like you're sitting, was Bill Cosby.
okay.
And I remember people would nod over, and I think about how many years ago that's been.
Yeah.
And I remember at one moment he sort of like, "Oh, here comes another one,"
Yeah.
somebody else. And I said, "Hey," I said, "you asked for all that fortune and fame." He said, "Yeah, but I didn't offer that bullshit that comes along with it."
Gave you a real answer, huh?
He did.
Interesting.
He did. But that was it. And then the Brown Derby I remember when the Brown Derby was down there.
You know, it's kind of technically it's still there.
They still call it the Brown Derby,
They
the whole
call it-
plaza,
Yeah.
but it's different.
It ain't the
They
same.
got Korean food.
Yeah, right.
I guess when
And I don't blame somebody for trying to capitalize off of the location.
Right.
But
the actual derby, the building is actually still there.
yeah.
So they picked it up and they moved it. To
Does
the
it still
top.
look like a hat?
It doesn't look like it. It's the shape. It's the dome shape. It's still there in the windows. But
Yeah, well,
the
it
brim
was
is
a
gone.
derby. It
Yeah.
was a hat. Oh man. But it's interesting.
All right.
Yeah. No, but LA has some fantastic places with, like you say, of historical value.
100%.
Oh my God.
I think, as you can tell, we love the history questions we're giving you, which just kind of makes us giddy. I think, especially when it comes to our agency, right? So,
I hear you. No doubt about it.
like I said, we could talk forever and ever
Yeah.
about this stuff. I'd love to do it again if you liked it, or even without the mics on, just kind of.
Well, anytime.
get a
I have
coffee
no
and-
problem with that. No doubt about it.
So we like this
Wrap up
podcast
time, huh?
is we dedicated to fallen officers. Sometimes we speak with families and partners of fallen officers. So
yeah.
I always like to end with asking the guest if they'd like to dedicate this podcast to a fellow fallen officer or friend.
Yeah. I have no problems with that. Boy, lots of friends. I've named a few.
Yes, sir.
Zell Minix. I rolled on Oscar Joe Bryant, saw him lying there. I've named about 2 or 3 people. Jerry Chavis.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
Sorry.
no. Hey, no. It's interesting. During this testimonial, if you will, your feelings come out. Period. Good, bad, or indifferent. And certainly, I've mentioned many a person that I have thought was great, and so, I just repeated them.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. This was good, though. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I meant to bring up
Yeah.
Oscar Joe Bryant earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You knew him?
I didn't really know Oscar. Another guy on the job, when he was working where he was working, I have no idea where I was. And I have to remember. Come think about it. I was working in intelligence with Zell Minix, and we rolled on that officer down. And I was so angry, and I tell you, I think about him at loss of life. The girl he was dating that time lives in Vegas right now, and I don't think I hear anybody talk to her about her. Or maybe he didn't want to talk about it. I don't know. She was dating Oscar at that time. And then I captured the newspaper that a local newspaper that published and had him on the ground, and I gave that to OJB, and I understand they have it framed now. But anyhow, it was. There's so many experiences that you've had. Gary Murakami, that was a sad state. Excuse me.
Bless.
Yeah, thank you. That was a sad circumstance. Oh my God! And I don't hear too many people talk about that. I wish there was more about that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's important.
About Murakami? Or?
Yeah, about Barry Murakami, young cop. Just he didn't have it. I don't even think he even had 6 months on the job.
I think that was his very first day,
Yeah,
first
so-
radio call.
Yeah, I forget. Yeah, walking past, and that guy takes him out. And then I'm thinking about a guy named Wiggins came down with a long gun and took out the suspect.
Yeah, the day we were up at Kenneth Hahn, Commander Gray, he said he was there.
Oh, Lewis was there?
Mm-hmm.
On the Murakami one? Yeah.
He said he rode it. He said he actually took him to the hospital.
Oh, really?
And he said that
that's good.
On the way over to the hospital, they took him to Morningside Hospital. Yeah. And he said the doctor told him, hey, pump on his chest, keep his heart going. And then he said that after about a minute, he said, the doctor said, okay, you could stop, he's dead.
Was that a headshot, wasn't it? Or was it?
He was shot in the face, but he was still alive.
Still talking about Murakami?
Murakami. Okay. Yeah, he said he's still alive.
Yeah.
When it happened. And he said afterwards, he said he goes back because he was working the U-boat. He said he went back to the station and the watch commander said, oh, glad you're here. I got the stack of reports for you to handle. And he sent him back out in the field after that.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we're a little thoughtless. I know that my daughter asked me the other day when she's in college in Syracuse, but bottom line is, she said, Dad, what's the worst thing you've seen on the department? And I said, you know what, I'll tell you, the one that broke my heart the most is, as a sergeant, I responded to a situation where the lady who lived in, you know how they have those little courts in 77? They have one row here and one row, and the doors face each other.
Yeah, right.
Sure enough, this lady, they lived on this side here. And the lady that lived there with her boyfriend and her 2 little babies, toddlers, was in the hospital having this guy's baby. And for some reason, the woman in the hospital said, okay, I want my sister to go pick up my kids rather than having them with him. Well, this fool, when they got there, he said, y'all go away, I ain't giving up nobody and the whole thing. And so they called the police. The police respond, and so I respond as a supervisor, and then knocking on the door, and the guy cranks off around through the door, bam, And he said, what's this all about? So obviously take cover and this whole thing, back up, come in and, surround the place. And sure enough, somebody said, let's take the door. Hit that door, and he bammed again. But now there's no shots coming out. He's shooting the kids. Mm. And I remember I looked in there, and one little kid was raising up. And so, I'll never forget that. Now, I don't know a name. I walked away from there, shattered, But, what's the worst thing you can see is a kid that's been shot by a fool, and for what? Mm-hmm. So the detectives obviously handled everything else, but I often think about that. These kids didn't even have a chance. Yeah. Some crazies in this world.
Yeah, sure is true.
Yeah.
Well.
But anyhow, guys, hey, this was wonderful. I feel like I'm running from here.
No, we're good. I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for opening up your beautiful home to us.
Thank you, sir.
Let me set up all these little cameras and stuff.
You can leave any of this if you don't want to use it.
I think it'd be good, based on that, to really kind of dedicate this podcast to everybody you worked with who have passed on.
We can do that.
Who gave you the experience and the memories to carry on and share with us.
And to the department, because it is a great department. It is a great department. I really mean that. I love it.
You were saying it when we walked in. I believe you.
Yeah. No, I mean, no doubt about it. No.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, I didn't see your hand over there.
No worries. Thanks so much.
Sorry. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow.
Good.
Now you can make me out and go back and do all this work I got to do.